Nearly 100% of Russia's combat forces from the border have now entered Ukraine. Russia's throwing everything it has into battle, even recruiting Syrians to come wage urban warfare on its behalf. Heavy battles raging in the south. Mykolaiv is the scene of massive fighting as Russian ground forces threaten to strangle the entire south and move towards the key port city of Odessa. The Black Sea coast is in trouble as the Russian military is making more progress there than in the north. Zelensky is begging for more air support from the West. Yesterday, Secretary of State Tony Blinken said the U.S. wouldn't stand in the way of any NATO members offering to support Ukraine.
If, for instance, the Polish government, a NATO member, wants to send fighter jets, does that get a green light from the U.S., or are you afraid that that will escalate tension?
No, that gets a green light. In fact, we're talking with our Polish friends right now about what we might be able to do to backfill their needs if, in fact, they choose to provide these fighter jets to the Ukrainians.
And Zelensky doesn't think warplanes are enough. He's still pleading for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, with NATO continuing to shut it down. But voices in the West are growing louder for a no-fly zone. Putin saying if that happens, it could be considered an act of war.
Now we are hearing that a no-fly zone must be established over the territory of Ukraine. But any move in this direction will be viewed by us as a participation in the armed conflict of whichever side whose territory will pose a threat to our service members.
Vladimir Putin even threatened a nuclear response over a no-fly zone. I'm afraid we could be hurtling ourselves into a deadly war that we can't stop. For years, we've been dangling NATO membership over Ukraine's head, actively flirting with them to join our alliance. As far back as 2009, Biden was tempting Ukraine with the NATO offer, telling their then president that, quote, if you choose to be a part of the Euro-Atlantic integration, which I believe you have, then we strongly support that. We do not recognize any sphere of influence. We do not recognize anyone else's right to dictate to you or any other country what alliances you seek to belong to. We signed up Ukraine as a NATO partner state a year ago. Was that a good idea? We kept telling them a little more has to be done. You're almost there. Just clean up your corruption. Then this November 10th, it changed everything. The Biden administration and Ukraine signed a charter on strategic partnership, saying that the U.S. supports Ukraine joining NATO. Putin saw this as a direct act against him. It was an assurance to Ukraine that they're almost there and that they're meeting their criteria that NATO had told them to meet. The agreement said the U.S. will, quote, emphasize unwavering commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, including Crimea, and extending to its territorial waters in the face of ongoing Russian aggression, which threatens regional peace and stability and undermines the global rule-based order. This move directly taunted Putin. He was furious and accelerated his mobilization against his neighbor. Did we have a plan for Ukraine? What did we expect when they were this close to NATO membership? Well, we either didn't have a plan for a Russian reaction, didn't think Russia would react, or we're watching our plan play out right now. Hilary Clinton hinted at the plan last week: turn Ukraine into a killing field to bleed Russia dry. Listen.
Remember, the Russians invaded Afghanistan back in 1980. It didn't end well for the Russians. The fact is that a very motivated and then funded and armed insurgency basically drove the Russians out of Afghanistan. I think that is the model that people are now looking toward.
So what we're watching unfold on the ground in Ukraine, a horrible ground war that moves to a Western-funded insurgency, that after many, many years sends Russia packing is a model. We're watching a proxy war. Ukraine wanted Biden to send them the Iron Dome missile defense system. This is the joint venture between the United States and Israel. But Israel and the United States shot that down. The Biden administration and the Israelis said they didn't want to anger Russia. Wouldn't let them defend themselves. That would have been essentially a no-fly zone, having the Iron Dome. So while innocent Ukrainian families are dying, Putin's forces are getting pretty run down too. But we're buying Russian oil. So we're funding both sides. Why are we doing that? Nobody wins here. Ukraine's becoming a graveyard. How did nobody in Washington see this coming? Or did they? And they didn't do anything about it. Or perhaps America would never have been able to stop the Russian invasion. But it seems like we could have finessed this Ukraine situation a little bit better because people are being slaughtered. NATO is now mobilizing. The market is tanking. A recession is looming. And gas prices are now above $4 a gallon. The American people and the Ukrainian people deserve better than this. And we must not accept it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.